Before we start the movie, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and enable the notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. Our movie begins with a handsome young man named Jimmy, who works as a salesman at an electronics store. It's clear that he has a fondness for women, as shown by his manner of interacting with the female customers who visit the store. It's also noticeable that the store owner's wife, where Jimmy works, is attracted to him. One day, while they were together, he told her there were a lot of mice in the storeroom, and indeed, he took her there. As soon as they entered, he began a relationship with her. Unfortunately, she accidentally pressed her phone, calling her husband. Unfortunately, he answered and heard what was happening between his wife and Jimmy, so he rushed to the storeroom and started a fight with Jimmy. Jimmy left the storeroom, and on his way out, he saw an attractive customer. He smiled at her and handed her his business card. After that, the store owner came out to continue the fight and fired Jimmy, saying he owed him $54,000. Jimmy didn't care and left quickly. When he returned home, he talked to his family about topics related to medicine. We learned that his entire family are doctors, and he had also been studying medicine, but didn't complete his studies due to his lack of seriousness. We also see his brother George, who doesn't work either, as his wife's family is very wealthy. During dinner, George asked Jimmy about his current job, and their father mentioned he was working as a salesman at an electronics store, which shocked the family. Jimmy then told them he had quit and was looking for a new job, but they were all disappointed by his lack of responsibility. However, Jimmy lied and said George had found him a job at a big real estate company, though the truth was that George hadn't found him any job. Later, Jimmy saw an ad for a sales representative position at a major pharmaceutical company. The next day, he went to the company and applied for the job. The company gathered all the applicants and briefed them on the nature of the work and the products they would be selling. The company's name was Pharmaceuticals, and they accepted all the applicants, subjecting them to a test. Among his colleagues, Jimmy was considered one of the weakest candidates, and it was evident that his boss wasn't fond of him. After many failed attempts to secure the position, Jimmy decided to use his charm with women. He got closer to his boss and eventually started a relationship with her, which secured him the job. His boss gave him an antidepressant to distribute to clinics and hospitals. Later, we see Jimmy in the car with a company official named Bruce, who advised him on how to succeed in the job. Bruce told him that the job wasn't as easy as it seemed, and he would need to work hard and keep trying because the beginning is always tough. Bruce took Jimmy to his first doctor to persuade him to buy the product, but it was difficult as the doctor didn't give him a chance to speak. Nevertheless, Jimmy didn't give up and tried to talk to him several times, though the doctor eventually ignored him and left. One time, Jimmy was sitting in Dr. Stan's clinic with Bruce, trying to introduce the company's medicine and provide samples. Jimmy noticed a girl in the clinic and called her by a different name. Bruce told him it wasn't her name. Jimmy replied that he knew but wanted to use this as a way to reconnect with her and learn her real name. Next time, when he calls her by the same wrong name, she'll correct him, and he'll say he thought she was upset because he hadn't called her. Suddenly, an attractive man walked in, and Bruce told Jimmy that this person was Trey Hangen, one of the top 10 salesmen at a rival company. Bruce warned Jimmy that Trey was a fierce competitor who wouldn't leave a doctor's office without convincing them to buy his company's medicine. Jimmy noticed there was a strong connection between Trey and Dr. Stan's secretary, as she allowed him to go in immediately. Jimmy decided to use his charm with the secretary, and she responded positively, allowing him to showcase the medicine. When he entered the display room to place the products, he took the competitor's products and put them in his bag. On his way out, he threw the competitor's medicines in the trash, but a homeless person picked them up to sell. Each time Jimmy visited the clinic, he brought flowers to get closer to the secretary, building strong relationships with everyone there. One time, Bruce told him that his sales were very low recently. Then, Dr. Stan walked in, and Bruce advised Jimmy that if he wanted to achieve good sales, he had to persuade Dr. Stan to buy the company's medicine. Jimmy accepted Bruce's advice and decided to meet with Dr. Stan. The next morning, Jimmy met Dr. Stan outside the clinic, told him he'd heard great things about him, and praised him for being an excellent doctor. He handed him an envelope containing money, calling it a partnership with Pfizer, and asked the doctor to convince his patients to use the company's medicine. Additionally, Jimmy asked Dr. Stan if he could be his intern for a day at the clinic. Dr. Stan agreed to let Jimmy intern for a day, and on the scheduled day, he took Jimmy to the clinic, where they met a patient named Maggie. Jimmy noticed she was beautiful and full of life. However, after speaking with the doctor about her symptoms, it was revealed that she was suffering from depression and Parkinson's disease, which caused tremors and made her life very challenging, with no known cure. Dr. Stan was deeply saddened by Maggie's condition, especially since she was only 26 years old. Maggie noticed Jimmy and was attracted to him. She started talking to him in a way that hinted at her interest in capturing his attention. She told the doctor that although she had money, she wasn't happy. Suddenly, she mentioned that she had a mark on her chest, and without warning, unbuttoned her shirt to show it to the doctor while Jimmy watched. Jimmy felt that Maggie was different from all the other women he had known. After Jimmy's training ended, while he was organizing his medications in the car, Maggie approached him from behind and hit him on the head with her bag. She had discovered he wasn't a medical intern but a pharmaceutical sales representative. Feeling deceived, Jimmy tried apologizing several times, but she mockingly dismissed his apology and left, visibly angry. Jimmy became even more intrigued by Maggie because of her strong personality, and easily obtained her phone number from the receptionist. After that, Jimmy's brother came to live with him after his wife kicked him out. Jimmy decided to call Maggie again to apologize and ask to meet. Maggie initially refused, but Jimmy didn't care about her rejection and went to see her at her workplace, where he was struck by her beauty and captivating eyes. Maggie mocked his outdated flirting style and told him she knew what he wanted from her, surprising him with a bold response. She said she wanted a relationship with him. 2. She took him to her apartment, where they had an intimate encounter, and their connection didn't stop there. They continued meeting and keeping in touch. One night, Maggie spent the entire night with Jimmy, getting to know more about his life. He told her he had once been a medical student, but hadn't completed his studies due to his lack of commitment, which disappointed his father. The next morning, Jimmy went to Dr. Stan's clinic, threw a competitor's medicine in the trash, and got into a fight with Trey Hangan, the competitor's representative, who warned him to stay away from Maggie. Later, Jimmy bought some food and went to Maggie's place, proposing a relationship. She turned him down, explaining that she was just enjoying her time with him without any intention of commitment, as she felt her illness made a relationship with him impossible. She told him about her past relationship with Trey, and how he had left her after discovering her illness. Jimmy was moved by her words, and as time went on, he began to show genuine care and love for Maggie. At one point, he told his friend Bruce that he wanted the responsibility of distributing his company's new drug. Jimmy continued his relationship with Maggie, eventually confessing his love for her. One day, Jimmy went to a casino with his brother George and his friend Bruce, where he ran into Dr. Stan. He started talking to him and successfully convinced him to use his company's new medication. One day, Maggie was heading on a business trip to Chicago, so Jimmy went to her and asked her to be in a relationship with him. However, she declined, saying he only felt pity for her, and told him to forget about the idea of being with her. She then left and boarded the bus. Jimmy decided to wait for her return to express his true feelings. When Maggie returned in the morning and saw him waiting for her, she was happy and realized he genuinely loved her, not out of pity. She went to him and agreed to be with him. She then asked him to come to her place, where they could spend some quality time together, and they began spending even more time together, with Maggie also showing her love for him. One day, Jimmy received a call from his company informing him that they had approved him as the distributor for the new drug. Overjoyed, he started working with enthusiasm, using his charm to successfully sell large quantities of the new drug. As a result, he became very popular, with media and television coverage boosting his fame due to the success of the drug that helped many people. Jimmy continued his relationship with Maggie and never made her feel defined by her illness, though she constantly questioned his love and doubted his feelings for her. One day, while Jimmy was at her place, she asked him, "Why did you choose me, the sick one, when there are other women without any illness?" Jimmy felt troubled by her question and left the house, leaving Maggie to collapse in tears, dropping a glass of water from her hand. Jimmy heard the sound, rushed back to check on her, embraced her, and reassured her that he loved her and wouldn't abandon her. He invited her to accompany him to a company conference, and she agreed. On the day of the conference, they went together, and then Maggie discovered another conference dedicated to people with her illness. She asked Jimmy if they could attend together, and he agreed. Maggie was incredibly happy there. For the first time, She felt understood by people who shared her struggles, and she started crying tears of joy, filled with immense positive energy. Unlike her, Jimmy felt uneasy when he spoke to a man there who asked him if he would have stayed with his wife if he could go back in time. The man replied, "Although I love her, I would have left her a note and found another woman to build a life with." Jimmy was affected by the man's words, and after the conference, Maggie was visibly happy and confessed her love to Jimmy, thanking him for standing by her every moment. But Jimmy was trying to hide his own feelings of discomfort. The next day, Jimmy went to Dr. Stan and asked him about a treatment for Maggie's illness. The doctor told him he couldn't help but would prepare a list of specialists in this field. Jimmy took Maggie on a tour of the clinics on the list, hoping to find a cure for her condition. They underwent multiple tests and scans, but each time, their hopes were dashed. Jimmy remained affected by the man's words at the conference, even though he loved Maggie and wanted to stay with her. Eventually, Maggie lost hope and grew tired of visiting doctors. In a moment of despair, Maggie felt deeply frustrated and lashed out at Jimmy, saying, "I know you love me, but you can't stay with me because of my illness. I never forced you into anything, and this illness is now a fundamental part of my life. If you can't accept me as I am, please come with me to the house to collect your things, because I don't want to see you again." Maggie broke down in tears and left him. That evening, Jimmy went to collect his things from Maggie's home and indeed distanced himself from her. Days passed, and Jimmy was unhappy, feeling constant sadness due to his separation from Maggie. One day, Dr. Stan invited him to a party with some women, and Jimmy agreed to go. While spending time with one of the girls, he began feeling somewhat tired and decided to visit the clinic. While there, he received a call from his friend Bruce, who told him about a job opportunity in Chicago. Jimmy was thrilled because this had always been his dream, but he felt that something was missing. Maggie wasn't by his side. He went to her workplace and found her with someone else. He spoke with her and told her he was leaving for Chicago, to which she replied that she was also traveling to Canada. They bid each other farewell, and Jimmy began packing his bags for his trip. The next day, as he was preparing, he watched some videos of him and Maggie together and recalled their memories. He realized at that moment how deeply he loved her, and decided not to let her slip away from his life. He rushed to her home to try to catch her before she left, but she had already gone. He got in his car, drove down the route of her bus, stopped the bus, and boarded it to confess his love. He told her he couldn't live without her, and that despite all his success and all the women he'd known, he had never felt love and comfort except with her. He asked her to forgive him for even considering leaving her, expressing his desire to spend his life with her. Maggie was moved by his words and felt the sincerity of his emotions, so she decided to leave her job to live her life with him. Jimmy returned to live with her in her home, and decided to go back to medical school to fulfill his dream. And that concludes our film for today. If you enjoyed the movie, don't forget to like the video, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications.